Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on how Washington actually works and exploring the hidden mechanics of U.S. congressional power. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on global politics and trade policy, make sure to subscribe right now and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Let's dive straight into today's topic. How does the U.S. Congress conduct continuous oversight? The practical functions of hearings, reports, congressional letters, power of the purse, and GAO investigations. Hello, everyone. In our last session, we discussed the core concept of continuous oversight by the U.S. Congress. Today, we will take a closer look at the specific tools and mechanisms Congress actually uses to keep the executive branch in check. Many people view the U.S. Congress merely as a legislative body that passes bills. However, one of its most critical functions is the continuous oversight of the executive branch. This oversight capability is not just political rhetoric. It is a highly potent authority granted directly by the U.S. Constitution. 1. Congressional hearings. Hearings are the most frequently used oversight tool by Congress. While they share similarities with South Korea's parliamentary audits, Kupchong-gamsa, their authority is significantly more powerful. When a committee convenes a hearing, it can summon a wide range of witnesses, including the U.S. Trade Representative, USTR, Undersecretaries of State, the Secretary of Commerce, Department of Justice officials, White House advisors, corporate CEOs, academic experts, and think tank researchers. During these hearings, lawmakers ask highly specific and targeted questions, such as, how exactly has the South Korean government's platform regulation impacted American companies? Have you reviewed potential conflicts with the Chorus FTA? What consultations has the USTR conducted so far? What are the plans for further investigation? These Q&A sessions become part of the official record, serving as crucial evidence for subsequent policy and legislative debates. 2. Committee reports. Often preceding hearings, committee reports are highly influential documents. U.S. Congressional committees frequently spend months investigating a specific issue before compiling a comprehensive report. These reports include factual findings, corporate feedback, government data, expert analysis, and future recommendations. Far from being mere reference materials, these reports act as official policy signals sent from Congress to the executive branch. The executive branch carefully reviews them, often integrating the findings into diplomatic negotiations or trade policies. 3. Joint congressional letters. In Washington, it is common practice for lawmakers to send formal letters to cabinet secretaries or the president. For instance, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, along with several colleagues, might co-sign a letter to the USTR demanding action. Please investigate the situation regarding South Korea. Report on the current progress of this matter. Have you reviewed whether this constitutes a violation of the Chorus FTA? While these letters lack direct legal enforcement power, their political leverage is immense. The executive branch generally submits an official response within a designated time frame, and that response itself becomes subject to further congressional scrutiny. 4. Budgetary control, power of the purse. One of the most formidable powers held by the U.S. Congress is its authority over the federal budget. The U.S. Constitution mandates that all federal spending must be approved by Congress. Consequently, Congress can attach specific conditions to appropriations stating, the USTR may allocate funds for this specific project. No funds shall be used for that particular initiative. Congress may also approve a budget contingent upon the executive branch conducting a specific investigation or submitting a designated report. In short, Congress effectively uses the power of the purse to steer the executive branch's policy priorities. 5. GAO investigations. The GAO, or Government Accountability Office, is an agency many people are unfamiliar with. It operates as an independent, nonpartisan agency that acts as the supreme audit institution of the federal government. Upon congressional request, the GAO investigates the efficiency and implementation of government policies. For example, if Congress asks the GAO to objectively evaluate whether the USTR is effectively handling a particular trade issue, the GAO will analyze the relevant data and submit an independent report. However, GAO investigations are not triggered automatically for every issue. They depend entirely on congressional request and the nature of the matter. 6. Mandated periodic reporting. Congress can legally require the executive branch to report on the progress of specific issues. on an annual or semi-annual basis. Through these mandates, Congress receives regular updates on how far negotiations have progressed, whether damages to U.S. firms have been mitigated, and whether additional measures are warranted. This mechanism ensures that Congress maintains continuous, long-term management over an issue, rather than treating it as a one-off event. How do these procedures apply to South Korea? There is a vital nuance to understand here. The U.S. Congress does not oversee the South Korean government itself. Rather, it monitors the response and actions of the U.S. executive branch. If Congress determines that a specific policy in South Korea negatively impacts American businesses, it will first press the USTR with questions like, have you initiated consultations with the South Korean government? Have you reviewed the policy's compliance with the KORUS FTA? Have you gathered feedback from affected American companies? Is a further investigation necessary? If deemed necessary, Congress may hold hearings, demand additional reports, or send formal inquiries to the executive branch. However, these steps do not translate into immediate sanctions against South Korea. The standard U.S. procedure focuses first on verification, investigation, and diplomatic negotiation before considering escalatory policy measures. Comparison with historical precedents. China. China represents one of the longest-running examples of U.S. Congressional oversight. In the early stages, the process consisted of recurring hearings and reports. This later escalated to formal USTR investigations with both the administration and Congress, spending years reviewing intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, subsidies, and supply chain vulnerabilities. Ultimately, this structural oversight led to Section 301 investigations, additional tariffs, and export controls. The trajectory followed a clear path: reports, hearings, investigations, negotiations, action. Comparison with historical precedents. The European Union, the EU, and the U.S. have previously clashed over digital regulations and platform policies. During these disputes, the U.S. Congress utilized reports and hearings to pressure the U.S. executive branch, which concurrently engaged in diplomatic negotiations and trade dialogues with the EU. While many issues were adjusted and resolved through negotiation, some remain under discussion today. This demonstrates that the U.S. prioritizes a phased, step-by-step procedural approach, even when dealing with close allies. Comparison with historical precedents. Japan. During the 1980s and 1990s, intense trade frictions arose between the U.S. and Japan, primarily centered around the automotive and semiconductor industries. Back then, the U.S. Congress frequently raised concerns through multiple hearings and reports, forcing the executive branch into protracted negotiations with Tokyo. This ultimately resulted in voluntary export restraints and market opening agreements, backed by trade pressure when necessary. The Japanese precedent further underscores this phased approach: oversight, negotiation, and subsequent action if required. What to expect moving forward. If the U.S. Congress continues to view a specific trade issue as a high priority, we can generally expect the following sequence of events: information gathering, collection of additional data and corporate feedback, committee action, potential committee-level reports or targeted hearings, accountability checks, ongoing mandates for the executive branch to report on negotiation, progress and investigative findings, legislative remedy, if Congress concludes that the executive branch cannot resolve the issue through diplomatic negotiations or existing frameworks. It may consider introducing new legislation or systemic reforms. Of course, this timeline is highly fluid and can change, depending on the severity of the issue, the progress of diplomatic talks, and the broader domestic political climate in the U.S. Not every case follows the exact same trajectory. This is how continuous oversight actually operates in Washington. In our next session, we will examine what Congress refers to as a legislative response. We will dive deep into past precedents in the U.S. legislative process to see what specific laws and policies these oversight actions can actually turn into. Thank you for watching today's breakdown. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on global trade policies and U.S. politics, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Don't forget to give this video post a thumbs up and share it with your network. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we will see you in the next session.